We learn today chapter 11. Now, for those who are from the United States of America, chapter 11 means bankruptcy. So you might think that this is about being bankrupt, but it might be actually. In one word, this chapter is rasha. We spoke in the previous chapter about the righteous. What's the opposite of the righteous? Is the rasha. The rasha is wicked. And what does it mean, wicked? That's a wicked term. Wicked. What does it mean, wicked? How do we understand that? So the truth is, I don't want to use the English word, because the English word has a connotation, and not the connotation that we want to have over here. It's going to be very negative one. It's going to bring us down, and we can't do that. We can't have it bring us down, that word. So we're going to use the word rasha. Zelumazeh, this against that. As we have on the holy side, we have on the other side, and that is the rasha. Just as we have in the holy side the righteous, we have two levels. So likewise, we have two levels in the rasha. We have in the righteous, we have those who are tzaddik veraloi, a righteous person who knows evil. So likewise, we have over here the antithesis, the rasha who knows good. That's the antithesis, or the other side. What does it mean? So just like by the righteous, who knows some negativity, means that there's still some minute kind of negativity that's deep down, but it is subjugated to the good. Here it's the opposite. Is that by the rasha, and he has good, means that the negative forces in the person, meaning the animal's soul, klipa, the other side, is alive and well, meaning it hasn't been nullified. By the righteous, it's been nullified. There might be a minute left, subconsciously. But here, the rasha, the divine soul, which is in the brain, in the right ventricle of the heart, is subservient and nullified to the animal's soul, which is in the left part. Now, what does it mean? It's subservient, and we'll see what that subservience means. Quantitatively and qualitatively, there are many levels of this subservience. So the Alter Rebbe explains. You can have an individual who their evil inclination is controlling the individual only from time to time, not all the time. Once a month they get upset. Once a month, their body is being controlled by their animal soul. It's very infrequent. Now, you might say, once a month you got upset for something you shouldn't get upset? Once a month you are a chariot to the negativity inside of you? Meaning that your three garments of self-expression are being prevailed by the animal soul? So it might be only like in deed alone. In other words, you might do something, some kind of minor transgression. Only in deed, not even in words. Or it might be just in speech that you are not speaking slander, but you're on the border of it. or you're scoffing, right? Or maybe in your thoughts you contemplate something that's negative. Maybe an indulgence of relations with even someone, with one's permitted spouse. But an indulgence in that thought. And that might be once a month. I'm just giving that example. It's once a month. What does that mean? It means you haven't conquered the negative force within you. It's still there. It rises, so to speak, its ugly head, controls the individual. Qualitatively, it's not, it's not carnal thoughts of carnal union of thoughts of someone that you're not allowed to be with, someone you're allowed to be with. It's not, speech that is actually slanderous, which is evil speech itself. It's not bordering on it. Like, for example, if you're, just to give you an example, let's say you're with your friend and your friend doesn't like this person and you say something positive about that person. That's borders on slander, because what you're doing is going to bring out in your friend who really dislikes this person something slanderous that they're going to say. Is it evil talk? No, but it's bordering on it. So a sensitive person wouldn't say that. So you said it, you kind of a mishap, And you knew that this person was going to say something negative as a result of that. That's called avak lashon hara. It's, is it really evil talk, slanderous talk, negative talk? No, but it borders on it. And you only did that once a month, let's say. So the quality of it is minimal. The quantity of it is minimal. It's once a month, right? Yet, what that means is that there's a stain on the soul, right? There's a stain on that person's soul. Or, for example, another stain on the soul can be that you have time to study Torah, but you turn your heart to wasting time, right? I do that. We all do that. Now, the Alter Rebbe says, so what that means is that the animal soul within us is prevailing over us. Again, we're talking about now an individual who we might otherwise think, this is a saintly person. Once a month he wastes time. Once a month he says something that's bordering on slander. It isn't slander itself. Once a month they might do something. Well, that sounds righteous to me. It's not. That's called a rasha. Why? Because you're being clothed in your soul at that time with sitra achar, with a negative force, right? That negative force is there. That stain upon the soul is there. It's like you have a beautiful white shirt, one stain right there. Or it might be just right over there so it's more hidden, but it's still a stain before God. God sees it. Maybe others don't see it. Others think, oh, this guy's righteous. But there's a stain there. Now, what happens with this kind of person? They've done something wrong. What are they going to do afterwards? What do you think? Very simple. Because their divine soul is very active, it's going to assert itself. Right? Remember, this person once a month is doing something wrong. I'm giving, the Alter Rebbe says here, only time from time, I'm giving it as the example once a month. All right? And what's going to happen? So that means that their divine soul is really active in their lives. But at times, their animal soul gets the better of them, meaning that their animal soul is alive and well within them. This is called a rasha because there is a stain upon the soul. So what's going to happen afterwards with such a person who has done something wrong, right? Again, minimally, in this instance that we're giving, is that their divine soul will assert itself, and they will be filled with remorse over what they've done in thought, speech, and action. And they will seek forgiveness, pardon from Hashem for what they have done, and do the appropriate penitence as a result. And of course, God will be forgiving. No doubt about it. So, in this instance, the animal soul rarely prevails over the individual in their three garments of self-expression, thought, speech, and action. We're not talking about deeper things now, right? Which the tzaddik, righteous person, has mastery over, which is the subconscious emotions and the perspective of mind, not the thoughts of the mind and not the thoughts that one has as a result of their emotions. That's already garments of self-expression, right? So that's one kind of individual. Now there's another type of rasha who knows also good, meaning the good in them is there. It just isn't so dominant, so controlling of them, less controlling in this instance, because all three garments are enclosed with thought, speech, and action that they are engaged in more heinous sins, more frequently. Yet there's a common denominator over here that they know good, the rasha that knows good. The common denominator is that they will, more infrequently, but nonetheless they will have remorse. They will have regret for what they did, and they will have thoughts of penitence enter their mind, not more often because they do more things wrong, but not as consistently as will be with the first kind of person that we mentioned, who is very infrequent, once a month kind of person, right? So what's unique about both of them is they own their stuff, therefore they have remorse, regret for what they do, they recognize as a stain upon their soul, and they do tshuva. Now, what's also equal about them is that they don't have enough strength within them to completely vanquish the negative force within them, the evil within them. They can't get rid of the sin entirely, even though they do tshuva, have regret, and so on. And this is what our sages say in the Talmud about such people. I don't know if it's sounding familiar. I hope it is. I hope it is. Such people, our sages say, the rasha, the wicked, are full of remorse. In other words, in between what we do wrong, we have regrets, and we try to mend those things, but we're not so successful, and we have the regrets again because we have failed. This is the person who's more, consistently, not the once a month or maybe. Even the once a month are, in the sense, is essentially the same because they succumb to a similar thing. They didn't, overcome. So in both instances, whether it's your once a month or once a day, or several times a day. So we have several times a day regret, wasting time, saying things that were not exactly the way we should have, thoughts, so on and so forth. That is a very, in a sense, healthy person. That's really a healthy person. This represents the majority of the wicked people, that in their soul lingers good and causes them to have feeling of remorse in their minds and in their hearts, but yet are not able to change themselves so drastically that they will not fail in that particular area again. They'll improve, they'll get better, but they will still fail. Right? That's the first level. Now there's a second level, which hopefully none of us are in this, but you know what? We might be at times. We might be known to such people. Or again, we might be ourselves sometimes like that. And what is that? A person who never feels a contrite heart, who doesn't do repentance, it doesn't enter their mind. They're a rasha that knows only evil, meaning the evil of their soul remains within them, that the good in them doesn't prevail over them, that they should do tshuva, that they should do penitence, that they should have regret and remorse. They don't have feelings of remorse. Sometimes they've gone through such a time, maybe ourselves, or definitely we know someone like that. It's easier to point the finger at others. That such an individual always has an excuse. We know such people. And sometimes we're like that. We always have an excuse for our behavior. Instead of owning it, because we feel the other person might be 90% wrong and I'm only 10%. So the first kind of rasha that knows good, because the good in their soul is there and comes back to them after they do what's wrong, they will own they're wrong, even though maybe they're only 10% wrong. And the other person in this issue is 90% wrong. But then here we're talking about a person who doesn't own that 10%. Or probably usually more like 90%. They think it's 10%, but it's probably 90%. They don't own it. They always have an excuse. Why they always have an excuse is because the evil in them is prevailing over them and the good is not present. But they have a godly soul. So what does that mean? How's that possible? So Alter Rebbe explains, because that godly soul is not penetrating within them. It's not in an internalized way. It is what we call makif. It encompasses them. It's aloof. It's external. Meaning it's not having an effect on them, at least then. Right? Do they still have that godly soul? Absolutely. So much so that that person can be part of a minyan. That person, if there's 10 Jews, right, that are part to make a minyan, and this person is someone who never has a regret, always feels good with what they did. And they're not righteous, right? They're not righteous. So, what is that person? Still part of the minyan. How come? Because the divine soul is there. It's just not penetrating. It's makif, hovers around them. It's not penetrating within them, that it is actually influencing them, that it's active within them, that it's really a part of their normative daily life. That is not a good sign. And unfortunately, there's people like that. And we might be sometimes like that, to be quite frank. I know now that a lot of stuff we know. What do you know, folks, that you could share with me as what we do now to conclude our class? Daisy from Yerushalayim. Shalom. Deborah from Brazil. Troy from South Africa. Yeah, we're going to get into the next chapter. Erica from Norway. Harold Shalom. Annette from the Bronx. So Linda, you asked the question. I hope we answered it. Alice, I'm not certain what you mean. Right, sometimes we don't know if we've stained. Pamela from Oakton, Virginia. Sandy, good morning. Cheating on a spouse is complete evil. There's nothing to speak about. We're talking about much more refined things. Of course it's evil and needs to, be fixed. Absolutely. From the Philippines, Wincia. I don't know if I pronounced that right. How does mental illness fit into the act of remorse? Excellent question, Alice. I mean, someone has mental illness, that's a different story. You're right. There might be people with mental illness and therefore they can't own anything. The different story may perhaps from Brazil, Diego. Powix from the Philippines. Okay, the slum between. Okay. Okay, Diane, I know now that if a person is feeling remorse, at least working towards being a righteous person connecting to the divine soul. I don't know if you're working towards a righteous, maybe it will be the next chapter that will be more appropriate, the Beinoni. But we'll get there. But thank you, yes, thank you, Diane. Batya, I know now that there's a type of rasha has feelings of remorse, want to get better, but fails. The godly soul has sometimes influence internally. Then there's another type of rasha where the good doesn't ever win and they don't ever feel remorse, right? That doesn't mean, by the way, the rasha doesn't mean they don't do acts that might be acts of loving kindness, but it will always be based on the animal soul, because it's self-fulfillment in that act. So, there's a very different kind of explanation of what rasha means, what wicked means. We usually think wicked, you do wicked actions, wicked speech, and here it's much more of a refined idea. That's why I use the word rasha instead. Luciana, this is not a place to discuss those kind of issues. In Tanya therapy, perhaps can deal with that. Okay, John, I know now that I must suppress my animal soul and do tshuva to become less of rasha, to allow my godly soul to penetrate. If I fall down, get up. Excellent. Okay. Fremad, I know now that a Jew who may have been cruel towards me has a yetzer hara and the ability to do tshuva, even if I never see it. Yeah, of course, because the godly soul is there. It just might be, again, not penetrated within the individual, only hovering, so to speak, and ineffectual. You have to want to make that real within you. At least I know now that the meaning of the phrase cleanliness is next to godliness is much deeper. Oh yeah, I think if we make the mistake more than once, it is no longer a mistake. Of course it's a mistake. It just means your godly soul isn't strong enough to overcome the animal soul in a real way. She knows now that she has to listen to this class again, okay? Days to be your true self, because your true self is good. Yeah, if it's your godly soul, of course. I know now that there are two levels of a rasha. On the first level, there are two types of rasha, one that is evil rarely, and one that is bad more regularly. On the second level, the rasha does not make tshuva. She is always satisfied with his or her thoughts, speech, and action. I would be happy to become a Beinoni, especially Beinoni trait. Yes, tomorrow's class is who we're going to be striving for. Absolutely. Today's class might be who we are. Tomorrow's class is who we want to be. I know now that the Rishoyim aren't completely evil and have lots of good within them, but there are also those who are more evil within them than God being revealed. Thank you, David. Okay. Remember, I know now that if a person doesn't have feelings of repentance, remorse, and they don't own their wrong, the divine soul is not penetrating within them. Excellent. Excellent. Tamil, I know now that I always feel better when listening to these classes. Great. That's great. Eugenia, how bad is it to have thoughts of anger towards someone who does bad to someone I care about? I know that I have let it go and do acts of kindness. So it depends if you are angry at a person's immoral behavior, that's okay. But if you're angry because you got hurt, that's a different story. Someone else got hurt because of their immoral behavior, so that's a different story. Linda, I know now that I should guard my thoughts as much as I guard my speech. Very good. I know now that to keep a daily diary about my spiritual progress. Clem, very good. Shoshana Bina, perhaps the only rasha I should judge is me. Oh, very good. Denise, I know now that I need to own the schmutz I'm creating on my shirt, right? That every thought, deed, speech, and action that is not righteous or not use righteousness, I can clean it with remorse and tshuva. Excellent. Okay. Yeah, Diane, Beinoni in training coming up. Eugenia, I know now that unless the godly soul deeply penetrates individual's consciousness, a person will remain a rasha level. Yes, and that is not easy, and we shouldn't, don't kill yourself over that. Like, that it's a struggle. Alice, I know now that the godly soul exists in every Jew, but is covered over the deep klipa. Yes. Tina. Okay, glad that it helped you. Daisy, yes, the times of Mashiach, that's what will be. Folks, amazing. As Bachi says, it's a struggle, but we're all works in progress. And that's what's important. What's important from today is that we need to know that wherever we're at, we need to climb the ladder to higher and higher heights. And the fact that we have, and I speak for myself, that there are things that I can consistently fail in. And I own it, and I still fail. The failing becomes reduced, not as big a failure, not as often, not as strong. But still, why? Because the animal soul is still there. I have not been able to conquer it in a way that it doesn't come back. That struggle. That's okay. But if you see every month, every year, or whatever time period, that whatever that failure was, it's now quality and quantity less, that's amazing. That's a great achievement. And that's what we need to look at. Not, oh, I still have a stain on my soul, and therefore I'm still a rasha. What good is there in me? I'm for sure not righteous. Not even a Beinoni, as we're going to speak about tomorrow. Don't get down on that. That's your Yetzer Hara, your evil inclination, speaking to you to try to get you down. No. All right, folks. Sharing is caring. Please share this with others. And as long as we're in the struggle, we're in the fight, we're in the game, that we recognize there are two sides. And I am aware of that godly soul, the goodness that I need to be working on. We're amazing. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you from Chabad Zich and Kadesh in Montreal, Canada, where it's a privilege and a pleasure to share with you the Tanya. Please share with others. Have a wonderful day.